went from Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Opinions Varied. That's Opinions with an A. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we have the mainstream media melting down all over the place because day by day, minute by minute, they become more and more irrelevant, and they know it. So we have The View freaking out about Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, and CNN flipping out about Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, and it's back and forth, and it never stops, and it's just too good to not watch and comment on. So without further ado, let's go.
We went from Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also...
All rehearsed, by the way. You're like, oh, he believes in dragons? This is all rehearsed. You don't think they talked about this before this started?
thinks that dragons, like dinosaur type of animals, roamed the earth when people did.
Rogan really leaning into this one by changing his ex-bio to, quote, dragon believer. Joe Concha is a Fox News contributor, and he joined...
So there's a Fox News report on Joe Rogan now, just basically playing along with these idiots, saying he puts dragon believer on his profile.
The View is under the ABC News umbrella. ABC News is run by a woman named Dana Walden. Dana Walden is Kamala Harris's very best friend.
So how is that never brought up during the campaign? I think, wasn't there? How is Kamala Harris allowed to even go on ABC News and do an interview when that's the case? Every Republican has got to recuse themselves when there's anything going on that, they might have known their college cousin's best friend's former roommate.
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
What's that make us?
Absolutely nothing.
I mean, it's crazy. And meanwhile, nobody cares. Nobody says a word that Kamala Harris is going on ABC News, doing interviews, going on The View, while her best friend's running the network. By the way, under the news banner, which is a joke, and the fact that they have stone cold racist propaganda going on that show all the time between Whoopi Goldberg, Anna Navarro, and Sonny Hostin, and it's allowed to stay on the air on national television. And they're allowed to say this stuff on national television, racist stuff. They're free. They could say whatever they want, free speech, right? But where is it that ABC News allows that? Why? Why are they allowed to keep doing that on national television? Tell them they're free to do it and on a bullhorn outside in the street if they want. Get a permit and go do it there. You're not doing it on national television over our airwaves.
All right, really quickly, continuing with the post-mortem here. Here is former NBC News anchor Brian Williams. He was on with Seth Meyers last night. Watch this.
It is tough love time for the Democratic Party.
I tell you, when they have Brian Williams, known sniper fire liar, standing in a puddle in during Katrina, that guy, liar. When I have Brian Williams seeming to be like the one who's above board here, telling them what they have to do, that just shows you how much trouble the Democrat Party is in. Brian Williams is a stone cold liar, but he seems to get it more than they do as to what they have to do to maybe save themselves.
I think it needs to be stripped down and rebuilt. I think it's insulting when members of the working class, which the Democratic Party has lost entirely in our lifetimes, to insist the economy is doing great. I think the biggest unforced error of the Biden administration by far was the border. To tell people it's not a problem is insulting.
It's called gaslighting. And now we're going to get into a CNN panel. Once again, Patrick McEnroe on. I got to be honest, he's growing on me a little bit. He seems to have more common sense than most of the people who claim to be political analysts on the show. And this guy was just a former tennis player. So let's get into this and hear what they have to say about Joe Rogan and the influence Joe Rogan has, how the Democrat Party needs their own Joe Rogan now. It's pretty pathetic. It really is. But I don't care. Let them keep doing it.
Patrick, let's start with that idea. When people, if there are such people who say that they need a liberal Joe Rogan, what do you think they actually mean when they say that?
Well, I think the short answer is they do need a new Joe Rogan. The question is, what does that look like? And I don't know if it's you can actually create it. Apparently a lot of Republicans were creating some of these.
They were creating them, like Jack with his beanstalk beans. I mean, what are you talking about? All right. Like I said, Patrick, he's growing on me a little bit, but he still doesn't fully get it. But he seems to be a little more centered than most of these unhinged lunatics on this show.
Podcasters and so on. So now the mainstream media has changed quite a bit. And I don't know if it's so much about who the person is or if there is a person. It's where they're getting their message to. And
mainstream media hasn't changed. The mainstream media has been exposed.
how they're getting it out there. Because obviously, as Joe Rogan and Bill said, everybody's getting their information from their phone. So where are you going to get that now? You can go on X like I do all the time, and you get it from all sides there. But I think
he just said X, you get it from all sides. Remember that. Remember what he just said.
For the Democrats, they need to find a way to get their message out to the people that they didn't get it out to.
Misha, I see you ready to jump here.
I agree with that. I think it is more an understanding of the new ecosystem, where people are getting their media.
This is the new word, guys. Ecosystem. This is their new talking point.
Messages from. We know that a lot of it is digital. It's social media. People aren't picking up the newspaper anymore.
Did, right? They like TikTok their way through the coconut summer. And
nobody cared about the coconuts. I think that it was a misreading of the electorate, but also a misreading of where people are getting their information. But in addition to that, it is not one person. I think that, Joe Rogan has had more lives than cats when it comes to changing it up. I grew up seeing Joe Rogan, have people eat testicles of animals and crawl through the darkness.
Jimmy Kimmel used to dress in full black makeup, and he also had girls in bikinis jumping up and down on trampolines. Does he have more lives than a cat, too?
He was doing Fear Factor. Then he did MMA, and now he's doing this. The man he shapeshifts a lot. That's not necessarily what is.
He didn't shapeshift. He's just done different things.
The thing that's bringing people in. What Democrats have to do is figure out ways in which they can get to the podcast that their people are listening to. That means your younger voters, your people of color voters. They're getting a lot of information from things that are not, unfortunately, shows like ours right now. That are not shows of the competitors either. You have to find a way to break through that. And I think that for Democrats, largely, their investments have been in ad buys and campaigns that are focused on media that the young people, that diverse voter just aren't in anymore. I think
here's your problem. When all we had was the media, which you controlled, the Democrats, right? You shaped the narrative of every message, and you had 3 networks, a couple of newspapers, the Times, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, and they all just echoed the same talking points over and over again until people said, oh, that must be true. And now you can't do that anymore, and you don't like it.
I think Democrats need to find a message first. What is their message to voters? That I don't understand. Do they want to be the far left? Do they want to be moderate? Where do they want to land? I mean, it's so inauthentic to me to hear, we need to find our own. How are we going to create somebody out of thin air? First, they need to find a message and figure out who they are, and then figure all that out.
It's got to be organic.
It wasn't healthcare access. It wasn't housing affordability. It wasn't childcare affordability. It wasn't having, assistance in your home for the...
No. You're talking about, first of all, those are all platitudes. Second of all, your solution for all those things is taking from somebody else and giving to somebody else. You're all about redistribution. That's all it's all about. Everything Kamala Harris came out with on her platform was $25,000 tax credit for dollar tax credit for this. $6,000 tax credit for this, $50,000 tax credit for this. That means you're taking from me and everybody watching who pays taxes, and you're giving it to somebody else. That nobody wants that anymore. This is not a socialist country. We were not founded that way. It's not in our nature. And finally, that was rebuked by people who said, I've had enough of this. I've had enough. I want to do well for me and my family. I also want to help other people when I can voluntarily through charity. But I'm sick and tired of going to work and seeing half of my check gone to go pay for somebody else. I'm tired of it.
That sandwich generation, none of those things.
Look, you guys are the one arguing all the time on TV and on radio and everywhere else about what the message is. I'm just saying they need to figure out the message. And then,
to be clear, Republicans argue about their message all the time. And I think I grew up with right-wing radio and obviously Rush Limbaugh. There's always been a robust right-wing media ecosystem. And the question I have is, how much of this is...
Again, they're missing it. Right wing. Okay. Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, Andrew Wilkow. We had nowhere else to go. You had nowhere to go. You couldn't turn on the television. Yeah, Fox News. But other than Fox News, like Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, you couldn't go anywhere for anything. And those were opinion hosts, right? So you couldn't get anything from anybody. The news is so slanted, it still is the mainstream media, legacy media, that we had to go somewhere else to listen to somebody who was putting our message that we wanted out there and the policies we wanted to the forefront. We had no choice. You did this to yourselves. And now it's coming to an end.
Actually about audience and what you will allow, meaning the campaign didn't let Kamala Harris sit for 3 hours.
But
and I don't think the campaign would have put her in front of Theo Vaughn to talk about his cocaine habit.
Look.
Democrats have a different sense of what's okay to do.
Whoa, wait a minute. They have a different sense of what's okay to do. First of all, they couldn't put her on one of those podcasts because she's not capable of having a normal conversation. And all of a sudden, we're upset about cocaine, that Theo Von was going to talk about his cocaine use. That's over the line for you guys? Are you kidding me? You're the ones advocating for, shows that are inappropriate in front of children at libraries and all the other debauchery that you guys promote. Are you serious right now? Really?
That's actually precisely the point. However, Bernie Sanders had no problem going on Joe Rogan years ago when Joe Rogan endorsed him. I've been on Rogan's show 3 times. I've probably heard over 100 hours of it in the past decade. A decade ago, Joe Rogan was a Bernie Sanders supporter who would get emotional talking about how important it is to legalize marijuana, who would get emotional talking about how important it is to get Christianity out of politics, in particular on the abortion issue, who had a host of left-wing opinions, including about healthcare. And liberals drove him away by calling him a racist, unearthing jokes he made, calling him a misogynist, really with no evidence.
When you make
calling
racist
him
jokes
a transphobe,
about people of color,
calling him a
people
lot of
calling you
comedians
racist is like...
See, triggered. What, he can't... That's what comedians do. They make jokes about everybody, you see? This is another reason why you're going to keep losing. Keep doing it.
Jokes all the time. Calling him transphobic because he didn't like seeing
also didn't
Fallon
love the
Fox
vaccine thing, right?
beating up.
To our point earlier.
That also used to be a left-wing opinion, to be against vaccines like 20 years ago. Again, so...
And you know what else Joe Rogan might have changed his position on? Maybe he did. Joe Rogan makes a lot of money now. Maybe he doesn't want 50% of his money going to pay for somebody else's health care. That's possible. I don't know. They'd have to ask him. Why don't they have Joe Rogan offer to have Joe Rogan sit here and maybe they could ask him directly?
He actually hasn't shapeshifted very much, to your point. The Democratic Party has shapeshifted and
become more radical,
driven him away and alienated his followers.
I think what he ended up seeing was an American political sphere that shifted, and he found ways. He's a lot smarter than people give him credit for. He found ways to walk into where those people were. Yes, he was a proud, ultra leftist, and then he became a proud person on the right, largely because he saw shifting towards the right, and that's where his money and his audience.
Why didn't anything shift towards the right? Maybe you should ask yourself that question. And first, I don't agree with her anyway. Maybe he evolved a little bit himself without anybody telling him what to do. He said, wait a minute, again, he makes a lot of money now. I don't want all the work that I put in to go to pay for somebody else who's not doing anything to better themselves. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I have shifted a little bit to the middle. Joe Rogan's not on the right. Joe Rogan's probably dead center, if anything. Maybe now he's shifting a little center right, which people tend to do as they get older, especially people that have had success through the capitalist system, which everybody has the opportunity to do so.
Could come from. He shifted because more of his listeners shifted, and that's where he drove it to. That's nothing more than consumerism at work.
Which of his beliefs changed in the past 10 years? It's really hard to point out which of his beliefs.
Which of his core beliefs have changed?
There is this, and I see you're nodding as well, this kind of bigger question. Like, you have a Jon Stewart, right? Mm-hmm. You have Pod Save America. You have all kinds of the late night, television brigade.
They're all left on the late night shows. I think what he said to me, what rings true about this whole concept of finding the liberal Joe Rogan is, he said, inauthentic. And when you talked about what Kamala Harris did in this campaign, knocking on doors, doing it sort of the traditional way, right? Raising tons of money. But there's something about Donald Trump, whether you
losing tons of money,
like him or not, or Joe Rogan or whomever, they are authentic.
Right. Totally.
And that comes through to people. And when you're trying to get your message out, whatever that message is, you have to be authentic.
You can be authentic, though, when you have something like 20, 30 years in the public eye, specifically the tabloids. There's no gaffe. There's no thing that you can be tripped up by. I mean, you're a politician. Right. You know what it's like.
Donald Trump has been the same guy for his whole public life. Look at his interviews back on Oprah Winfrey back in the 80s. Look at him. Listen to him. His policies have pretty much stayed exactly the same. He's the same guy. That's authentic. He's not, he's not trying to fool anybody. Kamala Harris is the most inauthentic person on planet Earth. It's not, why don't you say that? It's just a fact. She's completely inauthentic.
Very careful campaigns are.
The left needs to find a relevant voice that can live in that exact moment and be that authentic person, not just carrying the party's water.
So what about Pete Buttigieg? I see him everywhere online. And he goes on Fox.
Please, let it be him. Really?
Fox constantly.
But he's not a Joe Rogan. He's not running a day-to-day,
No, I just mean like it's possible for figures to go out.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to hit.
Pete Buttigieg, he'll appeal to the far left fringe. That's it.
You got to hit all the boxes. You got to be a good communicator. You got to be relevant. You got to be able to push back. You got to be able to invite guests on that are newsy. But I think at the end of the day, the left.
I got to stop it again. I'm sorry, but Pete Buttigieg, really? This is what I mean. They don't get. I'm sorry. 99% of normal people don't want to see a man with a bodysuit breastfeeding a baby. I'm sorry. If you want to do that, that's your thing. Go ahead. But you're not going to appeal to the majority of the population by doing that. You're just not. What don't you get about that? What's not triggered in your brain to make your brain understand? There, McFly, hello? When is it going to happen when you go, I guess people like don't want to see a guy with the bodysuit breastfeeding a baby, or the emoji with the pregnant guy. Listen, you want to believe in that? You're free to do that, but you're not going to appeal to the majority of the country.
Democrats need an honest umpire. One of the most damaging parts of this entire campaign.
Say that again, an honest umpire.
An honest umpire. To be able to call balls and strikes.
How about the media? Try being an honest umpire once in a while. You might save yourselves.
So remember one thing here, because I keep hearing I heard it from you a couple times, mandate, okay? Donald Trump's gotten almost 77 million votes. He's approaching 77 million. Kamala Harris is approaching 74.5 million. That's a $2.5 million vote difference, which is big, but not huge. So is it really,
For a Republican, it is huge. To win the popular vote by 2.5 million votes, I'm going to explain why in a second.
I know the Republicans have to always say it's a mandate. Is it really? That's still a lot of votes that Harris received in this
When you have
campaign.
the Senate and the House, I think that's pretty big voice that the American.
It was a solid victory, no doubt. Was it a mandate?
Yes, it was a mandate, and here's why. Not only that they took the Senate, they took the Senate by more than people expected, number one. They kept the House, which nobody expected, number two. The most important thing, too, Donald Trump made big inroads into blue states. He made big inroads into blue states that has a couple of states, like I was always talk about. New Jersey could be in play in 2028. And for a Republican to get, first of all, Donald Trump in 2020 got the most votes ever for an incumbent. Joe Biden got 81 million votes, right? So, but Donald Trump still had more votes then than any incumbent had ever gotten. So to do what he did as a Republican, to win the popular vote now, this isn't 1984 or 1980 with Ronald Reagan or even 1988 with George H.W. Bush. We have to take the popular vote now, to make those inroads into those deep blue areas is very, very difficult. In fact, many people thought a Republican would never win the popular vote again, which is why the Democrats are always so hot on getting rid of the Electoral College, because if they think they get rid of the Electoral College, they win every election from here on out. So to make those inroads and to win the popular vote by 2.5 million, whatever it is a mandate for a Republican. Regardless if a Democrat did it and won by, one vote, it would be a mandate according to the media. But the fact that Donald Trump did what he did is a clear mandate, especially when he's polling the way he is with immigration and people want these deportations and on the economy. So he has a clear mandate. Don't listen to the noise from people in the media telling you Donald Trump doesn't have a mandate. He does.
I actually want to know, I think X has a role to play in this because there's a little bit of shadow boxing the past activism of the past decade. And by that, I mean that when Elon Musk purchased Twitter, people were always worried about what would happen on Twitter and the Twitter mobs coming after you and the kind of progressive politics that was able to punch up from Twitter more or less feels disbanded under X. I mean, am I wrong?
And a part of that is
No, it's not disbanded. It's that now conservatives have an equal ground now. So best ideas are going to win. Most compelling people are going to win. So you don't like that, right? Like I said, you're not controlling the narrative. You don't like that.
because
people are still like, oh my God, what about this? And
the
I'm like,
algorithm has changed significantly, and a lot of those activist voices have been quelled. Many of them don't pop up in people's regular search engines. Instead, you're hearing a lot more from the right, and part of that is because that's how Elon set it up. He amplifies the voices of the right wing.
No, the voices of the right wing amplify the voices of the right wing because maybe people like their ideas better.
Amplifies his own voice, and he's trying to ensure that, you know, all voices are not heard equally, and we've seen that time.
What evidence do you have of that? You're just saying something right now. You just made an accusation that Elon Musk is shadow banning progressive voices on X. Where is your proof of that?
Time and time again.
But I think that also...
We know that Jack Dorsey, whatever the hell is that his name, who was running Twitter, we know that he did that to conservatives. Absolutely shadow banning, absolutely putting his thumb on the scales. Hunter Biden laptop story, first and foremost, as proof of that.
contributes to maybe the left feeling like they've lost a microphone, and another thing.
I think the left just doesn't.
No, you've lost control.
Like what they're hearing. That's why they're all running to this blue sky thing that
Right.
they want to do now. I think a lot of these people don't want to hear conservative voices. That's the far left. They don't like hearing things. That's part of the problem they had in this last election that we went through. Is that when you don't agree with me 100% of the time, well, you're out the door.
Right.
And I think that's what's been happening on X.
Harry Enton on this network reported that X's frequent users now are exactly split between Republican and Democrat. Now, if that's true, that means all of the people on the left leaving X right now are leaving essentially a reflection of the country because they're not comfortable with the power they used to have on X.
But there wouldn't be right and left media if people didn't kind of flock to their
For me,
their
it's
corners.
a different conversation. It should be the public square. I think those are Elon's words. He referred to Twitter as the public square. It feels like his thumb is on the public square, right? He's influencing it with, like I said earlier, 4 out of the top 10 feeds are coming from Elon Musk.
What proof do you have that it's because he's putting his thumb on the scale? If you're going to make a statement like that, I know you're not used to that at the CNN glass table. I know you're not, you could say whatever you want and you never get pushback. I get it. But now we'll push back. You just made a statement that his thumb on the scale is the reason why 4 of the top 10 site or whatever accounts on X are because Elon Musk is putting his thumb on a scale. Where's your proof of that?
That just doesn't feel authentic.
Like that. Yeah,
It doesn't feel authentic because you're losing.
I think that sometimes it's too navel-gazing, right? Like it's a media thing, like whether we're on Twitter or not. But you also saw in this last election how much media still matters. It may not be the traditional media the way we think of it, but sitting down and doing a good interview still means something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sitting down and doing a good interview still means something. Right. Well, it depends on who's doing the interview and the questions the person doing the interview asks and follow-ups and all that stuff. And you guys in the mainstream media, the only real tough interviews you ever give to are to Republicans or conservatives. Your game is it's exposed, like I said. Game's exposed. So you have I don't think you ever recover. I really don't. I mean, unless you do a full 180 and really just load your networks with opposite voices and give them an equal seat at the table, you might have a chance to keep yourselves relevant. But if not, you're dying on the vine. It's happening in real time. And you still don't get why. I don't like they were talking about during that segment. As it was happening in real time, this election, conservatives, we saw what the issues were, and that people wanted that people wanted addressed: immigration, economy, just transgender stuff. They wanted it addressed, and they couldn't see it. They were blinded by ideology. I will not be blinded by ideology. If I see the Republicans and with the baby deletion issue, I say all the time, it's a losing issue. Donald Trump is the only one who came to his senses and made it where, with the Supreme Court decision that happened, he framed it right and actually made it I'm not going to say a winning issue, but he made it a tolerable issue for a large majority of the country. Enough of that, enough of the country so that it wasn't a determining factor in this election like it was in 2022. And there are other reasons for that too. But he made it a tolerable message that even people who disagree on would say, I could deal with it. It's not going to make or break my vote. It's not going to be the single issue that makes me say, oh, I don't care about the economy. I don't care about illegal immigration. No, that's what he did. He made it tolerable. And that's what you have to do. Politics, you have to adjust day by day, minute by minute. People are talking about AOC might run in 2028. 2028 is a million lifetimes away politically. A million. From here to January 20th, when Donald Trump gets inaugurated, is a lifetime politically. So many things change. It changes like that on a dime. So you have to, they're still so unaware of everything that happened. I don't know that they get themselves out of this. I don't know. They're just going to die in a hill. Whatever. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain because we need, as I've said in other videos, I said, the Republicans need to move the ball back down the field the other way. You can't just pause at we're on our own 1 yard line making a goal line stand here. We need to start moving the ball back into their territory with legislation, policies, culturally. We need to move the ball back and put them on defense. So let them keep spinning their wheels and just not getting it. There's nobody better at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory than the Republicans are. They will step on their you-know-what every single time because we still have way too many rhinos, way too many fake conservatives who just run that way because they think they can get elected in that district or that state. And then once they get to Washington, we know what they do. So we need help. And if the media wants to give us this help and the Democrats want to give us this help, we'll take it. Sorry I went on so long there. I could go on forever about it. It's a never-ending discussion. It really is. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Appreciate you watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, especially if you've made it this far, listening to me ramble on and on. You must really like what you heard, or you hate it so much that you just had to keep listening. Either way, subscribe, hit the like button. I appreciate it. Continue to follow me at Opinions Vary.